summed up J.D. Vance the best. He's a weirdo. And I want to talk about Tim Walz, because Philly, in a minute, he's going to come out here, and I want you to give him a whole lot of love. Tim Walz is a great man. Tim Walz is an outstanding governor. Tim Walz is a teacher. Tim Walz is a guardsman. Tim Walz is a great patriot. He is. And I'll tell you what else. Tim Walz is a dear friend. And I want you to know, Lori and I feel blessed to have Tim and Gwen in our lives. They are outstanding public servants. And I can't wait for you, Philly, the rest of this Commonwealth, and our entire country to get the chance to know the Walzes, the next Vice President and Second Lady of this nation. And it is special that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have chosen to launch their campaign right here in Philadelphia, in the city of brotherly love. And importantly, they chose to launch their campaign right here in the of real freedom. The other side, Trump and his sycophants, let me tell you something. They love to talk a good game about freedom, right? They love to cloak themselves in the blanket of freedom all the time. They love to talk a good game. But hear me on this. It's not freedom to tell our children what books they're allowed to read. That's not freedom. It's not freedom to say you can go to work, but you can't join a union. That's not freedom. It's not freedom to tell women what they're allowed to do with their bodies. That's not freedom. It's not. No, it's not. And it won't be that way when Kamala Harris is our president. And it sure as hell isn't freedom to say you can go vote, but he's going to pick the winner. That is not freedom. That's not what patriots have fought for over the years. It is not. You know what we are for? You know what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are for? They are for real freedom. They are. The kind of real freedom that comes when we look that young girl in North Philly in the eye and we invest in her public school because we believe in her. We believe in real freedom, the kind of freedom that comes when we invest in our police and we invest in our communities because we believe that young girl should walk to and from school safely and back to her mama at the end of the night. We believe in real freedom, where the young girl can grow up and be whatever she wants. She can be a welder. She can go to college. She can be who she is. That is real freedom, and that is what we are fighting for. We believe in the kind of real freedom where she grows up in a community where she can breathe clean air and drink clean water and know that she will leave an environment to the next generation that is great for her kids and her grandkids. And Kamala Harris and Tim Walz believe in a real freedom where you can marry who you love and be who you are. and our fundamental freedoms are at risk. And I know when it's at risk, it's easy to feel uneasy, and it's easy to get down. But let me tell you something, Philly. Let me tell you something, Pennsylvania. Let me tell you something, America. I am more optimistic than ever before. And the reason I'm more optimistic than ever before is because of all of you. And because of what a band of patriots started here in our taverns, in our town squares, and at Independence Hall, just a couple miles from here, nearly 2.5 centuries ago. You see, they came together. They came together to declare our independence from a king, and we're not going back to a king. From a king, they came together and they said, we are going to form a union. And over the last 248 years, the reason why I'm optimistic, the reason why I'm hopeful, is because as we've written this American story over the last 2.5 centuries, it's been ordinary Americans taking up the baton from those patriots and saying, we're going to do extraordinary things. Octavius Catto understood that responsibility. Cecil B. Moore understood that responsibility. Gen Z, when they're organizing on TikTok, understand that responsibility. And I'm optimistic today because the task of perfecting our union, the task of defending our fundamental freedoms, it now falls to all of you. To freedom-loving Americans all across this great country. And to the good people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who will decide this next election and understand our unique responsibility. This is a moment where we all have to understand that while we'll see Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's names on the ballot, that this election isn't just about their names on this ballot. This election is about all of you. And whether or not you're willing to do this hard work to fight for our freedom, whether or not you're willing to do this hard work that started here 248 years ago. I want to just say this. I lean on my family and I lean on my faith, which calls me to serve. And I am proud of my faith. Now hear me. I'm not here to preach at y'all, but I want to tell you what my faith teaches me. My faith teaches me that no one is required to complete the task, but neither are we free to refrain from it. That means that each of us has a responsibility to get off the sidelines, to get in the game, and to do our part. Are you ready to do your part? Are you ready to form a more perfect union? Are you ready to build an America where no matter what you look like, where you come from, who you love or who you pray to, that this will be a place for you? And are you ready to look the next President of the United States in the eye and say, "Hello, Madam President." I am too, so let's get to work.
folks, Roland Martin here. We are waiting for Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to come out. They are there in Philadelphia at a jam-packed rally on the campus of Temple University. It is the same location that Donald Trump had a rally, but trust me, it was not this well attended. It has been quite a busy day since word came out this morning that Vice President Kamala Harris had selected Governor Tim Walz as her VP running mate. A lot of people did not have him as the one at the top. So many people, of course, were thinking was going to be Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro, who you just heard speak just a few moments ago. But the reality is the vice president chose Governor Tim Walz, Tim Walz, I'm sorry. So even though it's W-A-L-Z, it's pronounced Walz. So it is I believe it is a fantastic pick. We're going to break all of that down later with our panel right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Normally we are live at 6 p.m. Eastern, but we chose to go early because of this rally taking place right now. Significant amount of energy there. I was texting some journalists who were at the rally last week in Atlanta, as well as this rally here, and they say the energy is even higher than it was last week when Vice President Kamala Harris was in Atlanta last Tuesday with Meg the Stallion. Sorry for my voice. I'm broadcasting from home. I came down with COVID, so I'm still trying to hold on to my voice and get it better. We're getting better, so hopefully in a couple of days I'll be negative of COVID. We'll be all good. But folks, we are waiting for this speech. This is obviously one of the biggest decisions, or the biggest decision of Vice President Kamala Harris. All right, here's a Democratic ticket right here. Let's go back to Philadelphia.
So let me say, on behalf of myself and the first, second gentleman of the United States, my husband, Doug Emhoff, thank you for the warm welcome. And let me just say, It's good to be here with all of the friends, all of the leaders who are here. I want to thank former Governor Ed Rendell, Senator Bob Casey, who we will re-elect this November, Senator John Fetterman, Mayor Sherelle Parker, and Chairman Jamie Harrison. And it is so good to be here with your incredible Governor, Josh Shapiro. And I will say, Josh is a dear, dear friend and an extraordinary leader. He and I have been spending a lot of time together over the years. And I told Josh, look, I am so invested in our friendship in doing this together, because together with Josh Shapiro, we will win Pennsylvania. We will win Pennsylvania. And I thank you, Josh. I thank you. So Philadelphia, I launched my campaign for the President of the United States a mere 2 weeks ago. And it's been a bit of a whirlwind. And just last night, the delegates to the Democratic National Convention finished voting. And so I stand before you today to proudly announce I am now officially the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. And so now we got some work to do. We need to move to the general election and win that. And to all the friends, listen, we also need to level set. We are the underdogs in this race. But we have the momentum, and I know exactly what we are up against. Now, many of you know, before I was elected vice president or elected a United States senator, I was an elected attorney general, and before that, elected district attorney. And before that, I was a courtroom prosecutor. So in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. Fraudsters who scammed consumers. Cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, Trump's type. So, but let me just say, hold on. This campaign, our campaign, is not just a fight against Donald Trump. Our campaign, this campaign, is a fight for the future. It's a fight for the future. In Pennsylvania, we fight for a future with affordable housing, affordable health care, affordable child care, paid leave. We fight for a future where we build a broad-based economy, where every American has the opportunity to own a home, to start a business, and to build wealth. We fight for a future where we bring down prices that are still too high and lower the cost of living for America's families. So that they have a chance not just to get by, but to get ahead. We fight for a future where we defend our most fundamental freedoms. The freedom to vote. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. And the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body, not having her government tell her what to do. So, I love you too. So here's the thing. Since the day that I announced my candidacy, I set out to find a partner who can help build this brighter future. A leader who will help unite our nation and move us forward. A fighter for the middle class. A patriot who believes, as I do, in the extraordinary promise of America. A promise of freedom, opportunity, and justice, not just for some, but for all. So, Pennsylvania, I'm here today because I found such a leader. Governor Tim Walz of the great state of Minnesota. To those who know him best, Tim is more than a governor. To his wife, Gwen, he is a husband. To his kids, Hope and Gus, he is a dad. To his fellow veterans, he is Sergeant Major Walz. To the people of southern Minnesota, for 12 years, he was congressman. To his former high school students, he was Mr. Walz. And to his former high school football players, he was Coach. And in 91 days, the nation will know Coach Walz by another name, Vice President of the United States. For some folks, they're just getting to know Coach Walz's story. And I'll tell you, he is the proud product of a middle-class family in rural Nebraska. He is a veteran who served our nation in uniform for more than 2 decades as a member of the Army National Guard, and he went to college on the GI Bill. He is someone who, long before he entered politics, worked as a teacher. When Coach Walz and his wife Gwen moved from his native Nebraska to Minnesota nearly 30 years ago, they both took jobs at the local high school. Coach Walz taught social studies, Gwen taught English. After school, Tim was the linebackers coach for the football team. Where I've heard the stories about he had a knack for using the game of football to teach life lessons. He saw the potential in kids who sometimes didn't even see it in themselves. Under those Friday night lights, Coach Walz motivated his players to believe they could achieve anything. And together, they defied the odds, hear this out, going from a winless record to the school's first ever state championship. Tim wasn't only a role model on the football field. Around that same time, Coach Walz was approached by a student in his social studies class. The young man was one of the first openly gay students at the school and was hoping to start a gay-straight alliance. At a time when acceptance was difficult to find for LGBTQ students, Tim knew the signal that it would send to have a football coach get involved. So he signed up to be the group's faculty advisor. And as students have said, he made the school a safe place for everybody. In the high school yearbook, the students voted Coach Walz the, quote, most inspiring faculty member. And as I think everyone here can see, Tim Walz was the kind of teacher and mentor that every child in America dreams of having, and that every kid deserves. The kind of coach, because he's the kind of person who makes people feel like they belong and then inspires them to dream big. And that's the kind of vice president he will be. And that's the kind of vice president America deserves. So it was Coach Walz's students who actually helped him decide to run for office. And he served 12 years in Congress, representing a purple district as he reached across the aisle to get things done. He was the highest ranking enlisted man to ever serve in the United States Congress. And the top Democrat on the Veterans Committee. And he was known as one of Capitol Hill's best marksmen, winning a bipartisan sharpshooting contest year after year. In Washington, Tim worked to raise the minimum wage, to protect the freedom of workers to join a union, and he cast one of the critical votes to pass the Affordable Care Act. Which, of course, gave health insurance to tens of millions of Americans. I'm going to tell you, when we win, Tim and I will continue to make the Affordable Care Act even stronger. We will win. Dealing with on the other side. So on that last topic, if Donald Trump gets the chance, he will end the Affordable Care Act and take us back to a time when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. You remember what that was like? Children with asthma, breast cancer survivors, grandparents with diabetes. Well, Governor Walz and I will not let that happen. Because we believe health care should be a right and not just a privilege for those who can afford it. As governor, Tim has continued to fight for working families. He secured paid leave for workers in Minnesota. And he refused, as governor, to allow any student in their public schools to go hungry. So he made school breakfast and lunch free for every child. And Tim Walz and I, we agree about many things, including when our middle class is strong, America is strong. And strengthening the middle class will be my defining goal as I am President of the United States. So Pennsylvania, ours is a fight for the future of the middle class, and it is a fight for freedom. In this moment, we are witnessing a full-on attack against hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. Take reproductive freedom. Now think about this. Donald Trump said he wants to punish women. And as a result of his actions, today in America, 1 out of 3 women live in a state with a Trump abortion ban. 1 out of 3. Some of these bans go back to the 1800s. Even before women had a right to vote. Think about that. Well, Tim and I have a message for Trump and others who want to turn back the clock on our fundamental freedoms. We're not going back. So let me say about Tim Walz, he has shown up to stand against these attacks long before he stood on the stage with me. After Roe was overturned, he was the first governor in the country to sign a new law that enshrined reproductive freedom as a fundamental right. When I am President of the United States and we win majorities in the United States Congress, we will pass a bill to restore reproductive freedom, and I will proudly sign it into law. Tim Walz has also defended the sacred freedom to vote. As governor, he signed the most significant expansion of voting rights in Minnesota in over 50 years. And with Governor Walz's help, when I am president, we are going to finally pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. We're going to get it done. So Tim is a hunter and a gun owner who believes, as the majority of gun owners do, that we need reasonable gun safety laws in America. So as governor, he expanded background checks and increased penalties for illegal firearm sales. And together, when we win in November, we are finally going to pass universal background checks, red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban. Through his work, Tim, the way I think about it, he really does shine a light on a brighter future that we can build together. In his state, he has been a model chief executive, and with his experience, I'm telling you, Tim Walz will be ready on day one. In fact, when you compare his resume shall we, to Trump's running mate, well, some might say it's like a matchup between the varsity team and the JV squad. So, Pennsylvania, ultimately in this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? A country of freedom, compassion, and rule of law, country of chaos, fear, and hate. And here's the beauty of our democracy. We each have the power to answer that question. We each have the power to answer that question. The power is with the people. We love our country, and I believe it is the highest form of patriotism to fight for the ideals of our country. That is how we preserve the promise of America. And after all, you know, the promise of America is what makes it possible for two middle-class kids, one a daughter of Oakland, California, who was raised by a working mother, the other, a son of the Nebraska plains who grew up working on a farm. It's the promise of America, because only in America is it possible for them together to make it all the way to the White House. Coach Walz and I may hail from different corners of our great country, but our values are the same. And we both believe in lifting people up, not knocking them down. He and I, we both know the vast majority of people in our country have so much more in common than what separates them. When we look at folks, we see in our fellow Americans neighbors, not enemies. Not enemies. And so my promise to you is this. Our campaign will reach out to everyone, from red states to blue states, from the heartland to the coast, in rural, urban, suburban, and tribal communities. We are running a campaign on behalf of all Americans. And when elected, we will govern on behalf of all Americans. And so, with Tim Walz by my side, and with all of you at our side, let us fight for the promise of our future. And with that, I ask Pennsylvania, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win. And now, welcome the next Vice President of the United States, Tim Walz.
Wow.
Wow. Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Madam Vice President, for the trust you put in me, but maybe more so, thank you for bringing back the joy. I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you and Doug, this incredible journey. And Pennsylvania, I know you know this, but my God, what a treasure you have in Josh Shapiro. Holy hell, can this guy bring the fire? He can bring the fire. This is a visionary leader. Also, I have to tell you, everybody in America knows when you need a bridge fixed, call that guy. And I think sometimes we forget, and you see people a little one-dimensional, but seeing a guy who cares so deeply about his family, a man with compassion, vision, and I'll have to tell you this, I know this from experience, there is no one you would rather go to a Springsteen concert in Jersey with than him, than that guy. Roots. And I can't wait for all of you and America to get to know my incredible wife, Gwen, a 29-year public school educator. Don't ever underestimate teachers. And our two beautiful kids, Hope and Gus. I couldn't be prouder to be on this ticket and to help Vice President Harris become what we all know is very, very good for us to think about. Next President of the United States of America. From her first day as a prosecutor, as a district attorney, Attorney General of the great state of California, a United States Senator, and Vice President of the United States. Vice President Harris has fought on the side of the American people. She took on the predators, she took on the fraudsters, she took down the transnational gangs, she stood up against powerful corporate interests, and she never hesitated to reach across the aisle if it meant improving people's lives. And I want all of you to hold this and don't ever underestimate the power of this. She does it all with a sense of joy. I know a little something about that commitment to people. I was born in West Point, Nebraska. I lived in Butte, a small town of 400, where community was a way of life. Growing up, I spent the summers working on the family farm. My mom and dad taught us, show generosity towards your neighbors and work for a common good. My dad served in the Army during the Korean War. And with his encouragement, at 17, I joined the Army National Guard. For 24 years, I proudly wore the uniform of this nation. The National Guard gave me purpose. It gave me the strength of a shared commitment to something greater than ourselves. And just as it did for my dad and millions of others, the GI Bill gave me a shot at a college education. My dad was a teacher. My brothers and sisters and I followed in their footsteps. 3 out of 4 of us married teachers. What we do. For nearly 20 years, I had the privilege of teaching high school social studies and coaching football. Including winning that state championship. Thank you. Don't ever close the yearbook. Don't ever. But it was my students. They encouraged me to run for office. They saw in me what I was hoping to instill in them, a commitment of common good, a belief that one person can make a difference. So in 2006, I took a leap and I ran for Congress. And because high school teachers are super optimistic, I was running in a district that had 1 Democrat since 1892. Well, my neighbors graced me with an opportunity to represent them in the United States House of Representatives. I'm proud of the work we did there together. I worked across the aisle on veterans issues, on agriculture, and on ways to grow rural economies. I learned the art of compromise without compromising my values. And now, as governor of the great state of Minnesota, I bring those experiences to bear in tackling the challenges that are facing our great state. Minnesota's strength comes from our values, our commitment to working together, to seeing past our differences, to always being willing to lend a helping hand. Those are the same values I learned on the family farm and tried to instill in my students. I took it to Congress and to the state capitol, and now Vice President Harris and I are running to take those very values to the White House. Now, Donald Trump sees the world a little differently than us. First of all, he doesn't know the first thing about service. He doesn't have time for it because he's too busy serving himself. Again and again and again, Trump weakens our economy to strengthen his own hand. He mocks our laws. He sows chaos and division. And that's to say nothing of his record as president. He froze in the face of the COVID crisis. He drove our economy into the ground. And make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed. You know, some of us are, some of us in here are old enough to remember. I see you down there. I see those old white guys. Some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule: mind your own damn business. These guys are after my heart chanting, mind your own damn business. That feels good, so thank you. Look, that includes IVF, and this gets personal for me and my family. When my wife and I decided to have children, we spent years going through infertility treatments. And I remember praying every night for a call for good news. The pit in my stomach when the phone rang, and the agony when we heard that the treatments hadn't worked. So it wasn't by chance that when we welcomed our daughter into the world, we named her Hope. When Vice President and I talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make your own health care decisions. And for our children to be free to go to school without worrying they'll be shot dead in their classrooms. By the way, as you heard, I was one of the best shots in Congress, but in Minnesota, we believe in the Second Amendment, but we also believe in common sense gun violence laws. Vice President Harris' idea of freedom is a ticket for education to be that ticket to the middle class, not crippling debt. Air that's clean, water that's pure, communities that are safe. A place where we settle our political differences not through violence, but with our votes. And that's what this election's about. What direction will this country go in? He's not going back. Well, Donald Trump would damn sure take us backwards. Let's be clear about that. And don't believe him when he plays dumb. He knows exactly what Project 2025 will do to restrict our freedoms. To rig the economy to help the super rich. If Trump gets a chance to return, he's going to pick up exactly where he left off 4 years ago. Only this time, it will be much, much worse. Raising costs on middle-class family. He will repeal the Affordable Care Act, no doubt about it. He'll gut Social Security and Medicare. And when somebody tells you they believe him. He said he'd ban abortion across this country, and he'll do it, whether or not Congress is there or not. Donald Trump's not fighting for you or your family. He never sat at that kitchen table like the one I grew up at, wondering how we were going to pay the bills. He sat at his country club up in Mar-a-Lago, wondering how he can cut taxes for his rich friends. And I got to tell you, his running mate shares his dangerous and backward agenda for this country. J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword for the architect of the Project 2025 agenda. Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on! That's not what middle America is. And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, you see what I did there? I got to tell you, pointing out just an observation of mine that I made. I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see. So you know what's out there, so say it with me. We aren't going back. We aren't going back. We are not going back. So we got 91 days. My God, that's easy. We'll sleep when we're dead. Over those next 91 days and every day in the White House, I'll have Vice President Harris's back. Every single day. And we'll have yours. You know how this works. We can't do it alone. We need you, each and every one of you. Go over to KamalaHarris.com, get on board, because we need you. Freedom to make our own choices. This leader, this compassionate, careful, joyous leader believes in each and every one of you. My God, you came here tonight to sit at the very top because you love this country and you're not going back. She believes in the opportunity for every single person to join the middle class. She believes in the promise of America. We just got to fight. We just got to fight. Because as soon-to-be President Harris says, when we fight, we win. Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Vice President. God bless America.
Folks, you are seeing the Democratic ticket right there. Of course, Vice President Kamala Harris, Second Gentleman Doug Emhoff. You also have Governor Tim Walz and his wife as well. Folks, you just heard both of them speak almost an hour. Vice President Harris first speaking, then the Minnesota governor speaking. They made it perfectly clear what their focus is. They're going to take the fight to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Of course, it is a raucous crowd there in Philadelphia. Pennsylvania is a critical state for Democrats. They must win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin as well. It is now the race is on. Over the next week, they are going to be traveling to various places across the country, making the case directly to voters as to why they should be elected. Of course, today in Philadelphia, tomorrow, the two of them will be in Detroit. Then they travel to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, but actually Detroit and Eau Claire, Wisconsin on August 7th. On August 8th, they'll be in Raleigh, North Carolina. August 9th, Phoenix, Arizona, August 10th, Las Vegas, Nevada. All of those are battleground states. And so the race is now on. As you heard Vice President Kamala Harris say, Democrats, of course, had a virtual roll call, and she's officially the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. Joining us right now, folks, is Melvin Carter. He's the mayor of St. Paul, Minnesota. We're going to talk to him as we keep the video on the rally. Mayor Carter, first of all, glad to have you here. Share with us your knowledge, your perspective of this governor. How is he to work with? What does he bring to this ticket?
I appreciate you having me on. It's always good to be on with you. It was fantastic just watching that. I got goosebumps watching that. I've seen a lot of political speeches, but the energy in that space, the energy in this country is just palpable. You can feel it. I've been mayor since just a year before Governor Walz got elected governor here in Minnesota. So that means he and I worked together through the height of the COVID pandemic, through the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, and a whole lot of highs and lows in this state over the last several years. He's been fantastic to work with. He's somebody who knows as governor that his job is to make sure that local leaders have what they need to be able to be successful. I'll tell you, he's just absolutely earned my support. He's been a great champion and a great partner for me. And I'm excited that the rest of the country is getting a chance to see what I've seen for the past several years.
When you listen to what the vice president laying out, she laid out a number of things that he has done in Minnesota that really reproductive rights, obviously meals for all students, gun rights as well. That right there is speaking directly to the base of the Democratic Party.
That's exactly right, Roland. He's got a lifelong service, whether that's a teacher, whether that's in the military, whether that's in Congress or as governor. He's got a lifetime time of service. He's somebody who is as bad as anyone I've ever met at translating values into public policy and investments, all of those types of things that she just described. There's just not enough time, even in an hour speech, legalizing adult use cannabis, returning voting rights to 55,000 Minnesotans who were formerly incarcerated. We could go on and on and on. One of the key accomplishments really is what you just described: free school lunches for every child. It's incredible how even controversial that can be, as we've seen Republicans fighting against free school lunches for students and arguing that all students don't need free lunch, all students don't need nutrition. But he's been somebody who's been a clear messenger for democratic values in our state. And I'll tell you one other thing that I really love about the governor is, every time a leader stands up to take credit for something, somebody stands up to say, you didn't do that by yourself. In the governor's case, he's the one who stands up to say that. So if he was on this call with us, he'd want to be clear that there was a whole bunch of legislative leaders. We have an incredible lieutenant governor. We have, community leaders and activists and organizers who made all of those victories possible. And that's another thing that makes me excited about him. He's a leader who doesn't think he has to do it by himself in the first place. He knows that democracy has to be a team sport.
I've already gotten a kick of how Republicans are trying to call him a socialist, how he is a radical leftist. I'm sure you got a good kick out of that.
Yeah, without a doubt. I wrote a haiku on Twitter one day. I think it said, "That's socialism. They cry when we feed children. Call me all your names." Because, and that's something that I know the governor shares, a belief the governor shares with me is, we've stopped a whole lot of amazing things just because somebody said that's socialism. But the truth is, making sure we feed our children is more important than avoiding somebody's ridiculous social media attack. And that's something that I value about the governor. He's led with his values. He's been very clear. He does exactly what he just said, which is learn how to compromise without compromising those values and really advance our state. I'm biased, of course, but I think it'd be difficult to point to a state that's been able to generate more not by virtue of tweets and public statements, but more public policy signed into law, public investments in the people of that state that that actualize progressive values, whether that's reproductive rights, whether that's workers' rights, whether that's voters' rights. The governor has been on the front line of it all.
Obviously, they are now going to be traveling around the country. Republicans are trying to quickly define him. They obviously want to define her. And so one of the things that was interesting when you look at his background, public school teacher, football coach.
That's right.
Loves guns, loves to hunt. And so this is a guy, military man. This is a guy who is going to be real hard for them to try to turn into Bernie Sanders.
That's exactly right. There's a reason he's won Minnesota twice. And I'll tell you, as we've seen over the past couple of weeks, he's an incredible communicator. He went on national news just a couple of weeks ago and said one word and changed the entire conversation just by observing. He said at an event last night here in Minnesota, he said, I didn't mean it as an attack. I just meant it as an observation. These guys are weird. And it changed the entire conversation. I saw other governors and other Democratic leaders, even our vice president, start to incorporate that language. And what's really crazy to me is we have a former president who has been convicted of 34 felonies, who has been complicit in an insurrection attempt, who's been found liable for criminal sexual conduct. But every time something like that happens, they send out a fundraising email. They raise money off of felony convictions, but you call them weird, and they go, "Hey, take that back." They get really worked up, and so I think they're going to find their hands full with a football coach and a prosecutor on the other side of the aisle. I think they have messed around and found two people who are well equipped to deal with their nonsense.
One of the things that I'm cracking up by is this here. The Trump folks actually put out this statement that, again, I thought was pretty hilarious, and I'm still laughing about it, where they criticize him for embracing policies to allow convicted felons to vote. Mayor, did they forget that they're working for a convicted felon?
They probably did, but and that's funny, but it's not funny because it's the stunning hypocrisy. And here's the thing: I don't, I have friends who have spent time in incarceration and have come out and become lawyers and become all kinds of different things in life and contributing members of community. And so, I don't think Donald Trump is a bad person because he's a convicted felon. I think he ought to serve his time and also deal with the consequences just like every other convicted felon has to do. But, I call BS when you are a convicted felon who hasn't even been sentenced yet, haven't done any time, haven't, paid your debt to society yet at all. And you fully believe you ought to have the right to run for president and be a part of the nation's conversations. But you would take people who have served their time, who have paid their debt to society, who are back in community, who are working and raising children and paying taxes, and think that they ought to be permanently excluded. Well, that's weird. And I have full confidence that the American public will see it as such.
All right, Mayor, we certainly appreciate you joining us. Thank you so very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you so very much, folks. We're going to be hearing from a number of other people, including Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. She's actually at that rally, so she's fluid right now. So she'll be hitting us as soon as she can get free. My panel, Derek Jackson, Georgia State Representative of District 68, joining me from Atlanta. Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney out of L.A. Randy Bryant, DI disruptor out of Washington, D.C. Derek, I want to start with you. We have seen quite an impressive rollout in the past 2 weeks. When you look at this here, this was held closely to the vest. There were no leaks. This was, they have been, the Harris campaign has been clicking on all cylinders since Joe Biden announced he was stepping down. He was not seeking re-election. The campaign has also announced that after all today, they've already raised close to $20 million since announcing this pick as well.
You know, Roland, you think it's been over a year, but it was just July 22nd when 45,000 Black women decided on a call. And then that following Monday, you and our fraternity brother Blake and Meharry and others had 53,000 Black men on a call. My point is the energy and the excitement organically has grown over the last 10 days. And so there's absolutely, I'm just flooded with joy and happiness because this is what our country needs right now. I mean, we're still on the heels of a pandemic. I mean, just 4 years ago, Roland, over 1 million citizens, one of my best friends of 35 years passed away because of COVID. Trump mishandled a pandemic. The economy was not only in ruins, he spent $8 trillion. And so when you see someone like President Biden decided to step aside and then turn around immediately and within 20 minutes endorse Vice President Kamala Harris, and then, as a retired naval officer, she has a tight ship. And she realized that she cannot do this alone. And this morning, she made the decision to go with a governor, Tim Walz, one that is a father, a husband, a veteran, a football coach, a teacher, a union member. I mean, he is the perfect package when you start talking about authenticity and integrity, one that can talk the talk and walk the walk. And that's what we're going to need within these next 91 days to make the case to the American public that we're not going back. We got to go forward. This is about hope, dreams, and aspirations. And this is a perfect ticket.
The thing that's really interesting here, Randy, when you look at what has happened here, Walz is very interesting in that he can appeal to Biden's white base, white seniors, white suburban voters, white independents. But young voters also like the guy. So it's very rare. I mean, first of all, even though if those two next to each other, there's only a 6-month gap between their ages. But it looks like he's a hell of a lot older. So it's interesting that you have this 60-year-old white dude who's loved by young voters. So you have both of them together who can energize young voters. He can speak to that white voter bloc that Biden had. That is critical because Democrats are going to have to hold on to at least 40% of the white vote if they're going to win in November.
He is the perfect choice. Vice President Harris made a good selection. She and her team made a perfect selection. What he is, I said today, he is a perfect DEI hire. They've been talking about DEI hires. They had to get someone who would add diversity to the ticket because we know that diversity. But
here's what's funny though, Randy. They've been talking DEI. Yeah. She only interviewed white guys, and you notice they ain't never said DEI. So for them, right, DEI applies to everybody except white men.
That is my point. That is my point. I was been saying earlier today and all week that white conservatives like to scream that DEI is a bad thing, and that they only apply it when you're talking about Black, brown people, and women. They are the expected choice, and anything different from that choice is a DEI hire. But so clearly, Walz is a DEI candidate, and anybody she looked at was going to be a DEI hire. All that means is that we need to add some diversity to the ticket, because diversity makes stronger teams. You have a diversity of thought. They're now able to appeal to more people and create a stronger product. So, of course, they were not going to select most possibly another Black person. They were not going to select a woman. They were not going to select somebody from California. They picked someone who was white and male, who gives you that look of what you expect a president to look like, unfortunately, because we've been brainwashed. They picked someone with a military background. They picked someone who's blue collar, who appeals to and seems like the everyday American, whereas Kamala Harris is what you would call different. It was such a smart move because it's a perfect DEI selection. I'm having a ball with it because they have used DEI as a weapon, which is exactly what we're seeing happen right now. It's what people do. When you're hiring for diversity, you're hiring for strength. You're hiring so you can speak and appeal to all people, which is exactly what Tim Walz does. He appeals to many people, particularly the ones that she wouldn't be as appealing to. So it's smart, but it's definitely a diversity choice.
Joe, what I also find to be interesting is that when you look at all of these, the whiny Republicans, so they tried this morning to saddle VP and Dems with anti-Semitic. Oh, Josh Shapiro wasn't chosen because of anti-Semitism. Even Eric Erickson, let me try to find the tweet. Hold on one second. I thought it was hilarious because Eric Erickson, big time right winger out of Georgia, he had posted this tweet trying to complain about. Okay, oh, here it is. Let me show y'all. Man, this is a really good one here. Hold on, let me switch this over. All right, y'all. So here's a tweet. Eric Erickson posted, "No Jews allowed at the top of the Democratic Party." Chuck Schumer wrote, "News to me." Of course, he's the Senate Majority Leader, and he's Jewish. Then here's a community note that Eric Erickson got hit with. Oh, my God. The Senate Majority Leader, Secretaries of State, Treasury, Homeland Security, Attorney General, Director of National Intelligence, and the husband of the 2024 presidential nominee, they're all Jewish. That was not going to work, Joe.
No, that's not going to work at all. And, they're in an interesting spot. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than to be good. And frankly, I can't give the Democrats a whole lot of credit. They knew that, 77 plus 4 was 81 4 years ago. They got lucky here. And what do? You want to do what you need to do to stay lucky, to take advantage of a moment. So if Harris was going to order up a vice presidential candidate, what would she need? Somebody that's regular and extraordinary, right? Somebody that you could call coach, teach, soldier, somebody that can appeal to your white working class, to your rural person, to your blue collar person, somebody that has strengths that amplifies Vance's weaknesses, like, being genuine and actually being credentialed and having executive experience. She could not have picked a better pick. Also, somebody who's progressive, is bona fide progressive, but who has worked the middle of the aisle and who's a better shot than the people that are so-called Second Amendment supporters. So that whole line about being anti-Semitic, that dog won't hunt, among other things, the Democrats weren't the ones walking around saying Jews will not replace us. Those were the white supremacists. So they can act like they don't have a problem, but they've had a problem for the last few weeks. and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. He's a great candidate. He has a wonderful heart serving this country. Has not made him bitter and hard, actually. It's made him soft, but he's done the things he's needed to do. He's soft on the inside. He's got a heart of flesh, and he's going to do the work, and he did the work. He's a worker bee. And so they can act like they don't have a problem if they don't want to. But today is another meeting where the Republicans are talking about what in the Sam heck are we going to do? That's where they've been for the last couple of weeks.
Also, Derek, here's what I find to be real interesting. All these Republicans, oh my God, how dare Kamala Harris made a mistake. She didn't go for the centrist moderate Josh Shapiro. Kayleigh McEnany was on Fox saying, oh, in Mar-a-Lago, they're excited. This is what I text several people. Sorry. I said if Republicans are excited or who you didn't pick, that means they lying. This ain't that hard.
Roland, not only are they lying, they're horrible in projecting, right? They try to project to the point that you're making. You know, hey, they didn't want Jews, they didn't want this, they didn't. Well, here's the thing. You're right to the degree that we're bringing substance and style and chemistry. I mean, just think about this for a second. You're talking about an opportunity where back in 1972, Shirley Chisholm, they talked about her hair and the glasses she was wearing and the audacity of this black woman in 1972. Fast forward to today, right, where they're attacking, and I'm sure we're going to get into it, about Kamala Harris' identity. Is she black? When did she become black? All these things, but it's not sticking, Roland. They throwing everything but the kitchen sink, and it's not sticking. This conventional warfare that they're trying to do is not sticking. And the reason why it's not sticking, because just like some of those individuals that were walking out of Trump's event that was right here in Atlanta, they were walking out because they're tired, they're exhausted. He rambled for 98 minutes and is not bringing anything. American public, they want someone, they want their representatives, their elected officials to talk about what are you going to do for them. And so when you have someone like Tim Walz that legalized recreational marijuana, right? When you think about talking about codifying reproductive freedom, when you start talking about voting rights and civil rights, all the things that the Project 2025 is the antithesis to, that's the American public, they're smart. And these young people, Roland, going back to your point, I mean, you know, I have 7 children, 4 girls and 3 boys. The youngest is 18, the oldest is 30, and they love this. They told me while I was at the barbershop, Roland, about this pick. And so that is the kind of energy and the hunger that we were looking for. And it just so happened to fall on Kamala Harris' watch.
Again, I just been cracking up all day as I see these Republicans. Richard Grinnell, who worked for Trump, check this one out here. This was a tweet. This guy Cernovich, is it Michael Cernovich? I don't know who the hell he is. He goes, Josh Shapiro was objectively a superior VP choice in every way. Under DEI policies, he couldn't be hired. Too Jewish for Democrats. See, here's my whole deal. They're literally trying to say, oh my God, Shapiro was so superior. Well, then y'all should be excited that he wasn't picked. No, here's the real deal, Randy. They knew Shapiro was going to have a tough time with the Democratic base. They understood opposition research. And they're freaking out because they're like, damn. On paper, we thought he was it. Damn, now we got to run against this folksy dude. I say Tim Walz reminds me of Warren Buffett. He's not Warren Buffett, the Omaha Oracle. He's not. He doesn't come across as a traditional Wall Street person. Very folksy with his manner, and I think and can communicate very clearly. He's not slick. He's not. He's somebody. I had a group of women who tweeted earlier. They said it was a text message. They said he's quite huggable. Whether people want to accept it or not, relatability is hugely important. And the fact that Republicans are freaking out that it was Shapiro, they're mad because now they got to throw that opposition research out the window, and they got to figure out how to attack a gun-loving, progressive, military veteran from the Midwest.
Right. They are looking, and they looked for and found the least problematic person. It was the same way that former President Barack Obama did with Biden. Who is somebody that can come in here and is not going to cause too many problems? I mean, yes, of course, there are all the positive attributes, but he is a candidate that is hard to dislike. I would love to participate or at least be a fly on the wall at these Republican meetings right now, because how do you go against someone who has nurtured children, who has been a coach and a teacher, who's been in the military, who is a gun owner, who is a family man, who is about women's rights? That's a big one. When you have so many Republicans now fighting against a woman's autonomy, a woman to be able to have reproductive rights, and he and his wife are intimately known for having to go through IVF treatment, he is a candidate that is going to be very difficult to attack. And we know that the Republicans, that is their platform, is basically hate. Very rarely does Trump talk about what he's going to do. He doesn't talk about policy. He attacks. I mean, I don't know if you saw his latest tweet that came out today. The man is unhinged and is just spewing hate because that's all he can do. But he's in a tough situation right now. They put him in a situation because how do you attack Santa Claus? They have Santa Claus on the stage, not in the way that he looks per se, but in the fact that he is a person that everybody likes, and he has brought joy to a lot of people's lives. He also is a favorite with the LGBTQI community. He has single-handedly dealt with significant groups in civil rights issues and attack these issues straight on. So it's hard to deal with someone who's as likable, who comes off as likable as he does. And so I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, they're going to have to make up something, some kind of scandal or something, because this guy, he's going to do the least harm, which is what we knew they were looking for, someone that could not really be attacked on anything. And then, of course, he does have all these positive attributes, but most importantly, least harm. He's just a likable, lovable, I agree with the text messages, huggable kind of guy. And he shoots from the hip, something that they used to applaud Trump for, shooting from the hip. But then Trump got nasty. He has these quips, and he's funny, and he's able to kind of make fun of people, like the weird comment, but in an innocent way where you don't feel like it doesn't seem vicious. It's something that people can not feel bad about. And he's quick with it. So I don't know. I can't say I feel sorry for them, but the Republicans are going to have a hard way to go.
All right, folks, this is the video the Harris campaign dropped earlier with her making the call to Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Tim.
It's Kamala Harris. Good morning, Governor.
Good morning, Madam Vice President.
Listen, I want you to do this with me. Let's do this together. Would you be my running mate, and let's get this thing on the road?
I would be honored, Madam Vice President.
The joy that you're bringing back to the country, the enthusiasm that's out there, it'll be a privilege to take this with you across the country.
Well, let me tell you, I have just the utmost respect for you. I have really enjoyed our work together. You understand our country. You have dedicated yourself to our country in so many different and beautiful ways. And we're going to do this. We're going to win. and we're going to unify our country and remind everyone that we are fighting for the future for everyone. So let's get out there and get this done, okay?
Let's do it. Do the work in front of us. Let's win this thing.
That's right. All right, buddy. I'll see you soon. Take care. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, that was the call there. And let me tell y'all how major this rally was. I'm going to pull this tweet up for you. So Trump had a rally last week in the exact same venue, and it wasn't packed. Julie Taruso, national political reporter with the, give me one second, with the Philadelphia Inquirer. She tweeted this. Give me one second. This is what she tweeted. She said, for the crowd-sized fanatics out there, Lycoris is full. There's an overflow space, and there's still a 4-block long line waiting outside. That tweet was posted at 5:34 p.m. Joe, that tells you the type of energy that is being created by the Harris and now Walz campaign.
That's right. And you can't manufacture energy. It has to be real. It has to be organic. It has to come from a place. And clearly, what we're seeing is that this change to Kamala Harris was that burst of energy. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that what she decided to do was to continue to keep it going. She's got young people engaged that weren't engaged. I heard from my daughter and how people felt about Biden on particular issues and just in general from an energy standpoint. She's got those folks engaged. She's got groups engaged that have not felt hopeful, that have felt resigned to the notion that perhaps we just have to lose this one. And this has breathed new life into this entire situation. And so what this does is actually, it kind of doubles down on the base. Sure, it does, because he's a base guy and progressives love him. But he is a bridge builder that has appealed to all kinds of folks. He was in Congress in a conservative seat for 12 years. His first Minnesota legislatures weren't as liberal as the ones that he has now. And so he's a guy that helps to connect the dots, and he helps to keep the energy going. You cannot fake this energy. It has to take on a life on its own, be bigger than the individual. And what's good about it is what's bad about it. You can't predict it. Okay. So if you can't predict it and you don't get it, it's bad. If you can't predict it and you do get it, it's good, because the other side, i.e. the Republicans, don't know what to do with it. And that's what we have right now. And so I think she did the right thing in terms of just keeping that energy going. And I don't think she could have done better. I mean, she got, like I may have said before, but I've been saying all day, she got Friday Night Lights and A Few Good Men all at once. I don't know how else you do that. I don't know how you top that.
Well, Derek, that's why I'm trying not to cuss. Okay? That's why I need James Carville and David Axelrod to shut the F up. I am so sick. They go come after. And so all this elation and this is over exuberance. What did Walz say in his speech? He said, Madam Vice President, thank you for bringing the joy back. Mm-hmm. The reality is, Donald Trump is, as Randy said, is nasty, mean-spirited, atrocious, pathetic. J.D. Vance, same way. So when you have somebody who's running with joy, who is looking forward, who's not condemning and America is awful and this and the other. And so you had what I call two happy warriors on that stage. And I think what you're seeing, this organic response, you had 40,000 people sign up for comics for Kamala on their call last night. All these people are raising money and volunteers and all these things happening. You cannot create that level of energy. It only happens organically if people believe.
You know, Roland, those two individuals, and there's a few more, let's be honest, Roland, there's a few other pundits who did not want her. They did not. They were talking about Gavin Newsom. They were talking about some other folks, right? They were talking about some other folks, Roland. And so that's the reason why they're a little perturbed, because they didn't anticipate this. They didn't expect for Kamala Harris to raise $310 million. Not in the month of July, let's be honest, in 10 days, Roland, $310 million, which eclipsed Donald Trump. They didn't expect for 1.4 million donors, and 62% of them brand new for the first time. Roland, they didn't anticipate over 100,000 volunteers showing up. They didn't anticipate that it was standing room only in the Convocation Center right here in Atlanta or Philadelphia and everywhere else they're going to go. They didn't anticipate, Roland, that this organic energy where you're going to have white women for Kamala Harris and white dudes for Kamala Harris and comedians and Latinos, and how all this just got on this train, and they said, with or without you, we're going to push this thing. And it pushed the Democratic Party. It really did. It pushed Nancy Pelosi. It pushed a lot of folks who behind closed doors, they were not talking about Kamala Harris being on top of the ticket. And so this coalition—
It pushed Barack Obama.
Right. So come on, Roland. If my grandmother was alive, she'll be 104, but she'll say, speak the truth to power, even back then. And so the reality is James Carville and others who continue to get on mainstream media and keep talking about, well, we don't know if the wheels of this train going to fall off. Huh? We're talking about, we have never witnessed this before. This is not the 1968 DNC convention in Chicago. This ain't 1968, Roland. This is 2024, and it's being, as Vice President Kamala Harris, she said it in Atlanta last week, this is being generated by people power, Roland, and they didn't anticipate this.
I must say, I love the shade, Randy, of Walz mentioning J.D. Vance on the couch. See, I'm petty, so I don't mind seeing petty politicians.
That's what I mean, is that I believe the Democrats have always tried to be nice, almost ultra classy. And of course, my idol is Michelle Obama, when she said, when they go low, we go high. And I like the fact that we're like high. And I like the fact that we're like high.
Hell no. Hell no. I ain't never agreed with that.
You go low, we getting with you this year. Like we down in the dirt with you. We gonna get dirty. And I really appreciate how both of them, I love how.
Listen, I couldn't do the show. Hold on, Randy. I couldn't do the show yesterday again because I tested positive for COVID on Sunday and I didn't have much of a voice. But yesterday was the anniversary of Montgomery Brawl. But you see, I damn sure wore my shirt today. So this is my deal to Harris and Walz. Bring a chair to that ass. Hashtag team whip that ass. Show up against Trump, against J.D. Vance. Go ahead.
I know I'm loving the shade, and I appreciate that we're slinging now too. I love the vice president started her back in the rally in Atlanta. She started the same way today in Pennsylvania, where she talked about being a prosecutor and a DA and how she's used to dealing basically with these criminals, and so she has experience dealing with people like Trump. I love it. Immediately coming out and setting herself, because they've been trying to use her history against her when she was doing her job. And so I like how she is embracing her job, embracing what she's done, and saying, and let's show that against the guy that used to be president, the guy that you all have the audacity to think that should be president again, a criminal. And she says, I'm used to dealing with folks like him. I mean, I have enjoyed myself throughout it all. But and Walz is time and a half too. I mean, he's ready to sling some shade and put it out there. Just the weird. I mean, to me, what showed that he's a high school teacher, just saying, they're weird, and they are so weird. Roland, did you see yesterday where they had the little the feed, the largest feed, and Trump was doing that crazy dance he does? It was so weird.
Yeah, he was doing it with the guy who regularly interviews neo-Nazis and white supremacists. So Donald Trump was right at home.
He was right at home, right comfortable, and dancing with the man. And you know, and it was so nice to have now this language of weird. And everyone came out with these tweets and said, now explain to me how these people aren't weird anymore. So yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. And I'm glad to see that we are protecting ourselves now and coming back with it. It seemed as if before we were trying to be so dignified. Now I understand why, don't get me wrong, but I'm appreciating that we are coming back now, doing it in a better way, not hateful, but protecting ourselves.
Absolutely. And so for folks, again, the rally in Philadelphia began shortly after 5 o'clock. It was probably about 50 minutes later when Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, took the stage to raucous applause. Just roll the video of them coming out and the audio. I want to play it for the audience, for folks who missed it. Sean Spicer, and he was complaining about, oh, that was a awful VP rollout, and they need them an event coordinator. And I was like, I started thinking, Joe, do you even remember the J.D. Vance rollout? I don't.
One thing about it, yeah, you got an opinion about the rollout, but the reason why you got an opinion is because you saw it. I didn't see J.D. Vance's rollout. I can't tell you what he said during his debate, but guess what? During his rollout, during his speech at RNC. But one thing I can tell you is that at the DNC, where we'll all be, there'll be 4 times the people watching. So people on all sides of it are going to see it and are going to see it up close. These guys don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about how you roll out or whatever. You know, you come out, you tell the truth. You fire up your base, you get them energized on hope. They don't know anything about any of that. They can't speak to that. What do they look like saying, well, this was a bad pick? Well, you know, because you had a bad pick. You don't know what a good pick is. How do you know one way or the other? It's going to be interesting. These debates are going to be fun because, listen, Trump is going to get banged on for sure, just like Harris banged on Biden. If people don't remember it, if they've forgotten it, and J.D. Vance is going to get banged on. He's probably not going to even know his name. I don't think he's sure. Okay, so they've got some serious problems here. They rolled it out with as much energy as you can possibly have. Just like we've said, it happened organically. It's absolutely bigger than them, and there's something hopeful and true and genuine about it. And that's the kind of thing that gets people voting. And at the end of the day, Gwen Guthrie said it wasn't nothing going on but the rent. Okay, and if you don't think that it was a good rollout, so far today we got about 20 million reasons why we think it was a good rollout. So if they want to keep talking like that, they can keep talking like that. But at the end of the day, they have a problem. They know they have a problem. And picking Tim Walz did not make the Republicans' situation any better.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, again, what you have here also, Derek, and I love the fact where Walz is like, yo, when we debating, when we going to go at it? And we already see Donald Trump. He's trying to get out of the September 10th debate. Now he wants to do one on Fox September 4th. And Harris is like, no. I'm going to show up on ABC. And I give ABC credit. ABC said whoever shows up going to still get the airtime. So now they're going to be in a conundrum. If she shows up, if he don't, she going to have it all to herself. To me, that's how you go at them. You stay on the offense, Derek.
Listen, Roland, I'm chuckling because when Trump said, well, no, my agreement was with Joe Biden. And then ABC said, no, the agreement is with the Democratic presidential nominee and the Republican presidential nominee. There are no names in the contract. So listen, they're twisting themselves like a pretzel, Roland. And I love the fact when Governor Tim Walz, just in case if the audience on Roland Martin, if y'all missed it, he said, how can JD talk about hillbillies that went to Yale and have billionaire friends? He basically said, I know hillbillies. I'm a hillbilly. I grew up in Nebraska, and they didn't go to Yale. They had to use a GI Bill, and they don't have any billionaire friends. And so I'm looking for, to Randy's point and to Joe's point and to your point as well, Roland, not only will we get shade, I'm so ready because J.D. Vance tried to come out today and start talking about how liberal, because he wanted to feed children. Listen, this man was a school teacher. He understands that a child cannot learn if you're hungry. He understands that there are some football players who cannot afford the cleats, and so they got to reach into their pockets. I mean, he's telling you all what it's like to grow up in middle class. And that's the story, which is a beautiful story when you start talking about individuals like Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz demonstrating to the 330 million Americans what it's like if you're given the opportunity. But you need a democracy that will give you opportunity. You need a democracy that's going to talk about freedom. You need a democracy that explains that we're going to help the least of these. And so it's a beautiful thing that they're tying themselves in a pretzel, Roland, because everything that they continue to throw against Vice President Kamala Harris and now Governor Tim Walz is not sticking and nobody's buying it. Oh yeah, by the way, these young people are letting them know what that business is going to look like.
Again, Randy, my advice to Harris-Walz campaign, stay on offense every single day. Press, 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 press. Because let me tell you something. You know what Donald Trump cannot stand? When he's not the center of attention. And so these rallies this week, I guarantee you, you're going to have 10, 15,000 in every single one of these places. And it's going to drive him crazy that his rallies are barely attracting 5,000 and 7,500 people. It's going to drive him insane. And I love every moment when he goes crazy.
I'm loving it with you. And I agree with you that they need to stay and focus on who they are, because the ticket is so strong. And don't put a lot of attention on Trump, because all Trump is going to do and his cohorts is to attack. They're going to be on defense. And what has been so pleasant is that we don't hear about him so much. You know, when they say that they aren't rolling out the vice presidential announcement, well, but they're talking about it, right? It's all we've been talking about for the last 10, 11 days is Kamala, and then who her vice president was going to be and who it is now, her vice presidential choice, and who it is now. And so I know that's driving them crazy because, like you said, he is an attention whore. He is a narcissistic, demonic man who wants all the attention and power that he possibly can have. And so to have people who are running a pleasant race, and as we said from the beginning, bringing joy. I mean, when they walked out on that stage, those were real emotions. It was nice to see a candidate that wasn't scowling, but happy, because all of us, particularly, we're not post-COVID, but post the pandemic as it was, need some joy. We are all looking for some joy, and we're looking for direction. Not someone who's telling us what everybody else has done wrong, but tell me what you're going to do. And that's what these two people have already done. So I agree with you 1,000%, just to keep on pushing. And like they say, they seem prepared. I love, the way it happened for them. It really does seem like divine order, is that they had 100-something days. Now we have, 90, little over 90 days to just push. And like Walt said today, we will sleep when we die. I think they're going to go hard and push their agenda and push who they are and push hope. And we know that hope works. It worked for President Obama. Twice it will work for them.
Now, folks, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro obviously was not chosen. He did speak at today's rally. Some of you may have missed his speech. I do want to play that also. We hope to get in about 12 minutes Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar on the show. So, folks, if y'all have the Josh Shapiro speech ready, let's roll with it.
I love you, Philly! And you know what else I love? I love being your governor. Thank you very much. Y'all fill my heart. And I love you so much. And I want you to know, every single day, I go to work for you. I put my shoulder to the wheel, and I focus on 3 simple letters in our alphabet, G-S-D. I focus on getting shit done for all of you. Continue to pour my heart and soul into serving you every single day as your governor. working my tail off to make sure we make Kamala Harris and Tim Walz the next leaders of the United States of America. That's right. Let me tell you about my friend Kamala Harris, someone I've been friends with for 2 decades. She is courtroom tough. She has a big heart. And she is battle-tested and ready to go. Whether in a courtroom, whether fighting as Attorney General, whether remembering the people who have oftentimes been left behind when she was sitting in the halls of power in the Senate, Kamala Harris has always understood that you gotta be every day for the people, for the people. And she has served with honesty. She has served with dignity. And every step of the way, she's broken barriers to serve all of us. Now, Billy, hear me on this. That's a hell of a stark contrast from the guy running on the other side. Y'all know who I'm talking about, I guess. You see, we remember here in Philly what it was like when Donald Trump was our president. We remember when he was president, it was more chaos, fewer jobs, and less freedom. You see, Billy, I know y'all, we walk around with a little bit of a chip on our shoulder because we remember, right? And we remember that it was Donald Trump that ripped away the freedom of millions of American women to make decisions over their own bodies. We remember that. We remember that. We're not going back. We are not going back. Go back, but let's go back for a second. Just remember. Let's just remember, because I think there's some folks out there that still have a little bit of brain fog, having a hard time remembering what it was like. Now listen, he brought all that chaos and limited our freedoms back when he was president, and let's be honest, didn't know what the hell he was doing. He didn't. But this is serious, gang. He knows what he's doing now. He does. And the Supreme Court that he packed, the Supreme Court that he has packed, has ruled that he is above the law. He is outside of the law. And now, he's got a clear plan. They all wrote it down in that whole Project 2025 thing. And they got a clear plan to take away more of our freedoms. They got a clear plan to use the Justice Department to go against our enemies. They got a clear plan to isolate us in the world. And let me tell you something, I ain't going back. I am not going back. Do you want to go back? We are not going back. We're not going back. No. We're not. And not only are we not going back, we're not going into the future with Donald Trump, not going in the future with him. He's told us what he wants to do, more chaos, less freedom. And yo, friends, it was Maya Angelou who said it, when they tell you who they are, I believe them, and I don't want to see that. And Donald Trump, well, he's now got a partner with him. Y'all see that guy? Yeah.
We're going to dip out of the speech by Governor Josh Shapiro. Joining us right now is Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar. Senator Klobuchar, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I thought that Kamala Harris was brilliant, and Tim Walz showed that he could make it on that national stage. He did it with really was fluid, wasn't as scripted as I think some people are at a rally like that, and made the case. He made the case for them and how they're getting along. You could tell that kind of chemistry. He made the case for America and made the case that he is able and more than willing to take on Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And I'd also add Governor Shapiro's speech was brilliant, and he kind of the way that he unified the ticket by his strong endorsement of Tim Walz and his willingness. I mean, they are friends. They've known each other for a while, and Tim complimented him. And I think that was a very important moment as well, because basically Governor Walz, a true Viking fan, walked into an arena full of Philadelphia Eagles fans, and we know they don't mess around, and neither did he, and I think they loved him.
So let me ask you this here. Obviously, you know this governor very well. You've had to work with him. What do you make of Republicans who are freaking out right now? Oh, he's a socialist. He's a far left liberal. And then this morning they were like, Democrats, you're anti-Semitic. I mean, they literally have been trying to throw everything. I've been cracking up the last 12 hours at how unhinged they are, because none of it makes any sense whatsoever.
Exactly. Well, so this is why I look at it. I know Tim Walz for a long time. He actually taught high school and was the coach that Kamala referred to in my husband's hometown. It was my mother-in-law that brought over a Parmesan chicken dinner when little Gus was born, because he was running for office and she thought that was an important thing to do as a neighbor. So I know him really well. And I think anyone that meets him knows him like our state does. They may not agree. Not everyone agrees with everything. Every leader does. Every politician do. But they know this. He's a strong leader. When he was in Congress, he won a red district that has only been held by one other Democrat in 100 years. And then he won it again and again and again. He took that vote to support the Affordable Care Act, and he didn't shy away or hide from it. He did town hall meetings all through the district with former Republican U.S. Senator David Durenberger supporting that act. He was a strong supporter of President Obama and, of course, of President Biden. And so he is true to his values, but to call him some kind of radical when he was in the top 10 House members in 2016 for being bipartisan, I just don't think it's going to fly. It is not going to fly. And not every vice presidential candidate has stood in a deer stand in 10-degree weather in Minnesota, but that guy has. Not every vice presidential candidate has won a sharpshooting contest, but is still a very strong supporter of gun safety measures, but Tim Walz is that person. So it's going to be very hard for them to put him in a box. And I think that was so much of the strength of the vice president's decision to bring him onto the ticket. She wasn't just going for a state. She was going for someone that she wanted to work with. And yet she brought along the other candidates who were incredible as well with her.
Okay, I got to ask you this here. You were in that arena, and I'm so sick and tired of David Axelrod and James Carville talking and keeps talking about, oh, this delirious energy. This is going to fade out. People, they're going to attack them. I'm like, both of you shut up. You ride the energy. He said in his speech, Madam VP, thank you for bringing back the joy. I'm sick of these joy killers who aren't seeing what's happening here. You literally have people who are mobilizing and organizing themselves, and the campaign doesn't have to do it. And so what you saw in that stadium was far different, because Trump was there last week, And that was a tale of two different arenas. And you can see the difference between a Democratic campaign, Harris and now Walz, compared to the America's going to hell, the world is crazy of Trump and Vance. That is important to latch onto that energy and ride that wave. Your thoughts?
Exactly. So first of all, I think they've been pretty positive about her. Everyone has, from the most liberal pundits to the more conservative Democrats. And I think she's taken them by surprise, some of them, because she has been incredibly strong, and she has been able to get all the Democrats behind her unified almost immediately. And then she's been able to fill arenas with yes, joy. And we just haven't seen anything like that for a long, long time. And I think people are very positive. I just run into people all the time in Minnesota, whether it's on the street, whether it is in the airport, and they're just like, wow, they have a new lease on life. They are walking tall, just like Kamala Harris. So the fact that she made this decision, maybe against some of the Beltway I would say predictors of what should she do and what would matter. She made her own decision based on her gut instincts of someone she could work with and someone who would stand up for America. And I think you saw that on display. Like I said, this is, Tim has spoken in big things in Minnesota. Don't get me wrong. He's head of the National Governors Association, loved by so many governors across the country. He headed up the Veterans Committee. He knows how to lead in a big way. But, you always wonder, especially when you're from the state, I'm like, oh, man, here we are. We're in Philadelphia on the big stage, and he knocked it out of the park. And I think one of the things I love about him is he is unscripted at times. He will say things in the middle of speeches and go off what the script is and walk around. Even last night we were together at an event in Minnesota. The band took the microphone, Roland. They packed up the microphone. So there was some delay, and he just dove into the crowd. We got the microphone, went back, and there he was again, just walking back and forth. The night before he's going to be chosen as vice president without reading one word on a script or a teleprompter. I think that kind of spontaneity, that kind of genuine person is what we need in politics right now. So I highly commend Kamala Harris for her choice.
All right, Senator Amy Klobuchar, thanks for joining us. It's been a crazy, busy day. 92 days, and it's time to take it to the country. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks a lot.
We can get a lot done in 92 days, Roland. Just watch. All right. Thank you.
I agree. All right. Thanks a lot. All right, folks, let's go back to our panel. We're going to have final thoughts. We'll close the show out. Of course, we started the show early by going to the rally, and then, of course, it went into the first half of the show. I'm going to tell you right now, Joe, it's a sprint, and there's no doubt in my mind the momentum is with Harris, Walz. I think, again, over the next several days, they are going to have rallies in cities across the country. I'm going to pull up this 1 second. And as I said already, they are going to drive Donald Trump crazy. He cannot handle not being the center of attention. He cannot handle when others are not talking about him. And so I think that what you're going to see Harris, Walz, as they go to these different cities, you're going to see them really, really causing a lot of attention here. Again, what we see right here, this first week, they're in Philadelphia today. Detroit, Eau Claire, Wisconsin tomorrow. Raleigh, North Carolina. They're going to be there on Thursday. Friday, they're going to be Phoenix, Arizona. Saturday, they're going to be Las Vegas, Nevada. We see more dates to come. That is going to me, they're going to be getting the attention, and I love it. It will drive them crazy, but they must press. He was a football coach, and so what did they say? Remember the Titans? My man said, Herman, leave no doubt. That's how you attack. Joe.
Yeah, you have to play like underdogs and still expect to win. Okay. And so interestingly, Donald Trump would theoretically get a bump from a convention. He would theoretically get a bump from the sympathy of the assassination attempt. Well, his bumps seem to be over. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, our person, Kamala Harris, we haven't even gotten to the convention yet, and she got a bump for getting involved, got a bump from adding Mr. Walz. I believe that will show up. And so they're getting bumps and bumps before the bumps, with money to show for it, with money to compete everywhere. And so to your point, they absolutely need to press. They need to hustle like they're underdogs that still expect to win. Check all the boxes, do all the things that you're supposed to. And as you're driving Trump crazy, by the way, here's where we are. Trump's not a very good candidate, guys. He's got a lot of support, and he's an excellent media manipulator. But he was never a particularly good candidate, never particularly disciplined, never particularly focused. His people have always worked around him. In a situation where you're in trouble, that's a problem. Biden beat him 4 years ago without this energy. There was some urgency, an urgency for a different reason. And so keep baiting him into making mistakes. You can bait him into making mistakes even while you're doing what it is that you're doing. Have your surrogates out baiting him. Have Brashear and Shapiro and Kelly and everybody else out here continuing to make the case everywhere and compete everywhere, and then they'll be right where they need to be.
You know what? I think that point there that Joe make there, Derek, really, really, really is an important one. When you talk about staying the underdog, and when you talk about that particular bump, their convention hasn't happened yet, and so when you now talk about going to Chicago, former President Bill Clinton, Secretary Hillary Clinton, former President Barack Obama, even though he's in hospice care, former President Jimmy Carter made a statement. His grandson said the other day, he said he's simply trying to hold on so I can vote for Kamala Harris for president. That was his quote. And so they really have an opportunity, I think, by the end of that convention to have a 3 to 5 point lead starting in September. And then that's when you absolutely begin to press the pedal.
You know, Roland, I say I definitely agree. Stay on the offense. Like Joe said, I mean, run the table, right? Dispatch your surrogates so that way we can see the same electoral college that Barack Obama had in 2008. Barack Obama, a lot of folks don't remember, but he had 365 electoral college, right? So a lot of folks right now predicting she might get 270 and 290. I'm saying, no, she could run the table and do exactly what was done in 2008 and get 365. So stay on the offense. The other thing, though, Roland, that and I appreciate your network because I know we're going to need it. We got to remain vigilant because right now across these United States, there are 70 individuals right now, Roland, that are strategically placed on these election boards. And we got 2 right here in Georgia that we're watching and monitoring because we had a state election board meeting today, and they're trying to implement some things to where they can cheat and steal the election on November 5th. So we got to remain vigilant, watch these 70 individuals who are on these election boards that are strategically placed from Missouri to Arizona to Georgia, Florida, and everywhere else. And then last but not least, Roland, continue to expand the coalition. I mean, you know, I'm sure, you know, when you start talking about white dudes for Kamala Harris, white women for Kamala Harris, Latinos and comedians and all these things, continue to harness that energy, expand the coalition, and let's have an electoral college that represents 365. Because when you beat them that bad, Roland, they can't cheat. It's going to be really, really hard. We don't want this to even be close to where somebody going to call and say, find me 11,780 votes, like someone did 4 years ago right here in Georgia.
Which is why, Randy, I referenced Remember the Titans when he said, Herman, leave no doubt. This is where the focus has to be locking up votes. The focus has to be locking people down. That was what the goal has to be.
You know, when I was a kid, we used to call it booking it. We used to go real fast. Like, oh, she was booking it. They're booking it right now. They are booking it. I feel as if they have this energy and they're not going to stop. And I don't feel as it's just two of them. It feels as if the Democrats recognize that they needed to fight hard this time. I mean, even harder than they've had to in the past. And just even Shapiro opening up. I watched his speech prior to you showing it tonight, right before. And I thought that was powerful because what it said is, I may not have been chosen, but I am still on this team. And we are all fighting for this ticket, for this team, for democracy, for hope to win. And so I believe that they have the energy. I believe we all have the energy. And I think they know what they have to do and they are prepared to do it. I feel very positive about things, not arrogant, where we shouldn't, as you say, fight as if we're the underdogs, because we should. But I feel positive about things right now. Just keep on pushing. Let's keep on booking it.
And again, absolutely, you run like you're behind. Randy, Derek, Joe, I appreciate y'all being on today's show. Thank you so very much. Hey, folks, do me a favor. If you want to support the work that we do, trust me, the conversation we're having, you ain't seeing it in black-owned media. It don't exist. We're the only daily news show that specifically targets African Americans. So support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app on all platforms. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, The Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds, available at bookstores nationwide. Due to my positive COVID test, I was supposed to be in Rhode Island today with my man Jeffrey Osborne, supporting him in his Jeffrey Osborne Golf Classic. Was unable to go there. And so again, to all the folks, to Jeffrey, to Tiffany and Charlene and his children, I'm always supporting him. So they know I would have always been there. And so hopefully we'll see you guys there next week. But look, got to get healthy, got to get my voice back because we got a lot of work to do. And we got to be operating, as I keep telling y'all, at peak efficiency. And so I will see you guys tomorrow right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla! Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?